Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. So we will talk about the potential of NGOs and of the sector of international cooperation and humanitarian aid in climate actions. And we will share the tools and the good practices that we have developed in the 2 years of the Mission Impossible project, co-funded by the European Union. So I will give the floor to Marta Nuero of Iroko NGO so that she will explain you better how has been the Mission Impossible project. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you, Martina. Thank you very much. So I will start sharing a presentation that we have created. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Not yet. Yeah, now yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the Mission Impossible project. It's a project financed by the European Union. It started in November 2021, so a long time ago. And the goal is to support the leading role of the international cooperation and humanitarian aid in the fight against the climate change. Okay. This project has been organized and has been led by ASUD, the Italian organization that Martina is presenting now, and also has been organized by Ponte and Fondazione Ecosistemi from Italy, the NGO AIDGLOBAL from Portugal, and the two NGOs also from development, Bosque y Comunidad and Iroko from Spain, and the University of Cadiz as higher education. And there were three outputs that we have developed. The first one is the MOOC, Massive Open Online Course. The second one, it was the Climate Strategy Toolkit that Fondazione Ecosistemi will explain later. And the third one is implementing a climate strategy pathway that is a guideline for development cooperation and humanitarian aid. So the MOOC, it was the first result that we were working on it for 1 year, more or less. It has had already, we are in the third edition. It has had 2 editions before, and it has 4 clusters. That first of it is climate gestion vision. The second is the climate change is basic. So the third one is curb your emission. That is good practices how to reduce their emissions that we are having from the NGOs, and the third one is to how to engage in this change to the people that we are working with. So it was 9 hours of video lessons and 16 hours of additional compulsory materials. When we had the feedback from the first 2 editions, it was a great feedback that it was a high quality MOOC and it has a lot of information. So I think it's very worth it to do it if you want to start in your organization. In this project, we have been given credits. At the beginning, University of Cadiz was giving 1 credit for the MOOC, and now in this 3rd edition is the University of Sapienza that is giving the credits. So this is the QR code where you can inscribe in the MOOC. Now it's in the platform of Training for Change, and it will end in the 9th of December, but it will start again with the next edition and it will be open, so everyone can inscribe still, even if the project has finished. The MOOC is in English, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and French. So you can choose the language that you want. It is the target group is for staff and professional from the development cooperation. Also, it is for academic and expert from development cooperation, and is very useful for students, volunteers, unemployed or not yet employed, and also for the institution. These are the target group for the project and for the MOOC and for the rest of the toolkit. So in the MOOC we had in the first edition, these are the numbers that we reached. So we had 683 people from European Union countries and 142. In the second edition, 279, and from third countries, 80. And the third edition is still on process, so we will have the results in the next days. The result two, the toolkit, as I said, Ecosistemi will talk later on a bit more about this. But there is a toolkit that are tools to calculate our impact and also how to create a climate strategy. So all the toolkit is meant to result in the climate strategy for our organization. And the result three is its methodological framework. So there is a learning pathway of how to implement the same project that we have done. If you want to implement it in your organization, we are telling you how we have been doing it and how can you do it, and also maybe the problems that we have faced and how we have tackled with it. So we are very happy that we have been all these years involved in this project. All the organizations that have been involved, I think we have done a great job, and the results are there for you to use them, and that's all. Now, Thais, you can present the toolkit.
Yeah, thank you, Marta, for introducing us to the project. So as you said, during the 2 years of the Mission Impossible project, an innovative output that we developed was the climate strategy pathway. So we starting from the idea that the cooperation sector and the NGOs and in general no-profit organizations themselves can be aware and try to reduce their emissions. So during the project period, the participating organization themselves start to test some trainings and some tools that we developed during the project, and Fondazione Ecosistemi, the Italian organization, was responsible for the developing of some tools and some training pathway. So I leave the floor to Thais Palermo from Fondazione Ecosistemi, and she will explain us better how they developed and how we test all this training pathway. Thank you, Thais.
Thank you, Martina. Okay, I will share my screen. Please let me know if you can see. Okay, can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So how to set up a climate strategy for an NGO? So this is the question and the main subject, the main topic of the presentation. But first of all, we would like to make some step back to answer a few questions. First of all, why a climate strategy for development cooperation NGOs, and who should be in charge of this climate strategy within an NGO? Well, first question, why a climate strategy for the NGOs? First of all, because they are sectors that, like others, have an environmental impact which may be higher or lower depending on their field of implementation. Of course, we are not saying that an NGO can have the environmental impact of a multinational oil company, for example. It's not that. But we can think, for example, of NGOs that have a strong work on the logistics that construct buildings or hospitals or schools, or that deal with agriculture, renewable energy, or that include among their activities a series of travels for missions abroad and so on. So again, why a climate strategy for development cooperation NGOs? Also, more simply, NGOs that manage their offices in a way that is not fully aware of the environmental impacts that their daily activities may generate. For example, in dealing with suppliers, purchasing of office products, or managing the electricity, and so on. So that's why it's important that NGOs have the tools to measure their environmental impact. Only in this way they will be able to implement really specific and targeted actions that aims at reducing these impacts. It's not just because of this, because it's not only of environmental impacts that the work of the NGO is made. On the contrary, many organizations carry out, even without knowing, very important climate actions. So this is actions that in themselves contribute to reducing the impacts and to fight climate change. So the climate strategy offers the tools that can help NGOs to understand in which sectors to invest more, which ones to enhance more in their daily work. The climate strategy also helps in debunking myths. I will give you a very emblematic example. What I would call a low awareness of the environmental value of a project or of a sector of intervention, of a kind of project in which the NGO can work on. A project in the education sector aimed at women and girls could be much more incisive in environmental terms than a project to implement a wind farm, for example. So the awareness of the positive potential of NGO interventions, actions, and the appropriate valorization of these actions can contribute to the organization's better positioning in the increasingly dynamic and competitive international funding context. And also, when an NGO becomes aware of the beneficial effects of one project area over another, it can direct its strategic choice different and better. Well, lastly, after implementing a climate strategy, the NGOs will be able to disseminate its good practices to all stakeholders, becoming a potential agent of change in the fight against climate change, both for partners, but also for project beneficiaries and even for donors. So this is why we think it's important to give this tool of the climate strategy to the NGOs. But who is in charge of the climate strategy within the NGO? Well, we know that many NGOs work with reduced staff, not to mention those that have to rely to the work of volunteers to carry out their own activities. However, it would be important for each NGO to have a reference person, a sort of focal point for the implementation of the climate strategy. In the Mission Impossible project, we call this person the climate strategist. So who is the climate strategist? Is an expert on climate impacts generated by the organization. It also supports the organization in the recognition of its impact on the climate and in the definition of strategies and actions to curb the emissions and to improve the climate actions. The climate strategist must have an strategic vision on the organization positioning in relation to the climate change, first of all, an accurate understanding of the global and sectoral trends on climate, major emission sectors and possible climate actions. The climate strategy should have also a good comprehension of how a carbon management system is built and implemented. And finally, the capacity to use the climate data to engage staff and volunteers, fundraisers, and other external stakeholders into a joint effort to mitigate climate change. For the climate strategies, there are not specific requirements in terms of educational background, nor the position he must have within the organization. But it's certainly a role certainly appropriate for administrative staff, for staff from the health, safety, and environment department, for project designers and for project managers, and also other staff that could benefit from the knowledge of the climate strategy is personnel from communication staff and fundraising staff. So after answered these two questions about why a climate strategy and who is in charge or should be in charge of the climate strategy, we can see the step-by-step to set up a climate strategy in the organization. So just let's recall that one of the objectives of the Mission Impossible project was to create useful tools for the future climate strategists to develop a climate strategy for each organization. So we, in our work, in the project, our partnership developed a toolkit that consists in checklists, in calculators, in templates for management systems, and for the procurement of goods and services, for example, which are made available for free to all the NGOs. To guide the climate strategist in the use of this toolkit, we developed the Climate Strategist Manual. It's a roadmap for the setup of the climate strategy to the compilation of the templates of the toolkit made available. We will see now one by one. So, sorry, okay. The manual, just let's spend some few words about the manual for climate strategy. It rolls out the path that an organization could follow to design and implement an informed climate strategy. Each chapter describes a different step that should be taken to design and implement a climate strategy based on the analysis of real data, and this is a very important thing. Maximizing the benefits that can derive from this approach for the planet and for the organization itself. So each chapter is accompanied by the relevant tools which can provide practical guidance for implementing what is described in the market as toolkit with this icon that you can see in a specific box. So it's we tried to do it's a real guidance for everybody to facilitate the use for each one. Most of these tools, the tools of the toolkit, are attached to the manual as an annex. It's to facilitate the fruition by learners who may want to use them separately from the rest, because, well, we have a toolkit which is made of many tools. But also the climate strategy can, or an organization can decide for a moment to use separately the tools to reach some specific objective that the organization has at that moment without implementing the climate strategy. It also is it's a beginning of the path through the climate strategy, and it's also positive. So we give the opportunity to use the tools separately. Okay, let's take a look together of each chapter and the related tools. Well, understanding climate change. It's chapter 2. It's a more theoretical chapter immediately following the introduction. It provides the basic information on climate change, its causes and impacts, and it frames the climate crisis under a political perspective, and it introduced the key concept of climate justice. Chapter 3, setting up and running a carbon management system. Well, it describes the key steps to set up and to run a carbon management system that includes the procedures and practices to reduce the carbon emissions. We have this available tool, which you can download, is the template and CSM that provides step-by-step guidance to assess the organization's carbon footprint and to develop an action plan to curb the emissions. In the 4th chapter, we have the monitoring and measuring impacts. Well, the chapter provides an overview on the importance of monitoring and calculating the impacts on the climate, both in terms of produced, but also saved emissions. The chapter provides a list of tools to measure the produced emissions and introduces the concept of climate action, showing how they can help one organization to multiply the beneficial effect on climate by initiation processes that avoid emissions that otherwise would be produced on a larger scale than the organization itself as well. Well, the concept of climate actions is very important for us in this project, also because we developed specific calculator to measure the climate actions. Among the available tools, we have a link to the greenhouse gas emissions calculator. It's United Nations calculator. It provides the link, so it's an external tool. We have also the handbook to how to use this calculator, also everything with a sort of step-by-step guidance. We have the Annex 3, which is the Emission Impossible Climate Action Calculator. It's the tool developed by the team of the project to measure the impact of climate actions in terms of saved GHG emission. It can also be freely downloaded. And lastly, the handbook for this calculator. The chapter 5, okay, time to take action, curb your emissions. So it illustrates 3 possible ways to curb the organization's emissions: through the procurement, with self-production of energy, and by raising the energy performance of buildings. The available tools in this case are examples of environmental criteria for low carbon procurement. Also, the links to web page on sustainable procurement with some examples and also sources of information. We have a checklist for energy self-production. It provides a list of actions that can be implemented to self-produce clean energy or to improve energy efficiency of the workspace. And we have a checklist for the energy efficient office building that provides a set of tips for managers and workers to reduce office-related emissions. In chapter 6, we talk about compensation, how to compensate the emission. The chapter introduced the concept of GHG emissions compensation and presents an array of tools to manage it. But we also refer in a critical perspective to compensation practice, and it provides insights for an ethical approach to the matter, which is very delicate matter inside the climate change politics. Chapter 7, it's above all for project designers and project managers, because it integrates climate concerns in project design. So it shows how the climate and the ethical concerns can be integrated in the project cycle from design through the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. The available tool in this case is a screening checklist for environmental and social risk identification. So the questions that the checklist poses aims at supporting the organization to identify the environmental and social risks related to the projects. It's valuable to be used when designing a new project or evaluating a project already in implementation. The chapter 8, how to communicate the organization of climate mainstreaming. Well, the chapter offers a practical guidance on how to use the climate data internally and externally. Not just data, sorry, the climate information would go beyond climate data. And particularly to engage staff on a joint effort to curb emissions and to maximize climate actions, to inform, raise awareness and engage the audience, and to strengthen the relationship with donors. So the tool in this case is a checklist that provides step-by-step guidance in building strategic climate-related communication. And finally, build your climate strategy. The chapter uses the steps developed in chapters from 2 to 8 to illustrate how to build an informed and science-based climate strategy. The available tool in this case is a template of a climate strategy, a sort of index, that is a step-by-step guidance to develop and illustrate the organization's climate strategy. So this is the manual, and this is all the toolkits that we developed for the organizations to implement their own climate strategy. And then what happens? Once the organization have developed the strategy, what should it do? Well, the NGO should use the climate strategy and the results to raise awareness and to join forces with the staff, with volunteers, with donors, and other stakeholders. So in this way, we believe that through their own example, the NGOs can contribute not only to make the world a more socially just place, as it's like the main goal of the NGOs, but also make a world a more environmentally sustainable. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thais, for your presentation. And so we had an overview of all the tools that we develop and we test ourselves to develop our climate strategy. So as I said, all the participant organization of the project test the instruments, and I will take the advantage of the presence of AIDGLOBAL and to share a good practice, because AIDGLOBAL develop a climate strategies particularly efficient. So if Sophia, would you like to share with us all the
Yes,
pathway? Thanks.
I'll share my computer and my presentation. 1 minute. So I can put it in presentation mode. Okay. Well, we are AIDGLOBAL. AIDGLOBAL, we are an NGO, a Portuguese NGO. Our mission is to act, include, and develop through education, promoting active citizenship and global change for a sustainable world. We work in Portugal and Mozambique. In Mozambique, in the area of preschool education and literacy, and in Portugal, in the area of global citizenship education. And we are partners of this project, and there was this challenge. We had to create a climate action strategy. It was a very big challenge because we never made it. It was the first time, and we had to really use the project materials and tools in order to create this strategy. We find a beautiful name title that is the roadmap to a greener AIDGLOBAL, and we find a time frame that is from 2024 to 2029. So we already started the implementation. But to design this climate strategy, we had to take many steps. One of them was to identify the context of where we work. We work in Portugal, but in Portugal we work in Lisbon, and then in the island of Madeira. And in Mozambique we work in this district that is called Chibuto in the south. So we have to understand the impacts, the climate impacts in these particular communities, and then make a diagnosis of our carbon footprint and our impact. We had to make this, and we had to analyze what were our baseline, where were we starting, and then to calculate our emissions. Okay, to calculate our emissions, we used the United Nations CO2 calculator. That was it was the first time that we used. And in this calculator, you will find it's an Excel, very friendly to use. We can identify what we want to calculate, if it is the impact of the consumption of water, of our supplies, if we buy a lot of paper, the use of cars going to work and to home. Okay, so you have to identify what can we calculate. Okay, if we are calculating our impact in water, we have to find the invoices of water supplies. If you want to calculate the impact of the paper we spend, we have to go and find for those invoices to see how much do we buy, how much do we spend in these resources, what is our impact, and then define a year. We decided to use we did this some time ago. Our reference year was 2023. And then we also have to identify if we only calculated the emissions that were directly, if we directly influence, or if there was the ones that we don't control, but yeah, we still have a participation on that. And this is a resume because our strategy is online. We can say that in the end, we calculated 24 tons of CO2 in this year of 2023. And the biggest impact was in Portugal. In Mozambique, it was only 4 tons, and in Portugal, 20 tons. And we saw that the highest impact in Portugal was the travel, especially the international travels that we have to go from Lisbon to Maputo, and also the travels of the human resources going from home to work by car. And in Mozambique, it was also the use of a car. There we had a car, and we had to use it to go to the communities to monitor the work, and that was the highest impact. So it was our baseline. Okay, we know that we have this negative impact, but we also wanted to see if we are an NGO, we work in environment, so we should also have a positive impact. So for that, we also used another tool of the project, that is the climate action calculator, that allowed us to measure our positive impact. This means that are the emissions that we avoid, that we save through our positive action. Because we are working in education, we could measure the emissions that we save by investing in school, in education in Mozambique, allowing kids to go to school, and the positive impact of our trainings, our capacity building moments in Portugal, when we address, engage, sensitize to the environmental issues. And with this, we think we can say that we avoided 6,000 kilos of CO2 emissions. So it was quite a nice experience to have these numbers, and now we will measure every year and see if we improve or not. We hope we improve. Okay, now that we have our baseline, we started to define objectives for the future. What do we want to do different? So we have less. So we emit less greenhouse gas emissions, and we enhance our impact. So we decided to create objectives at internal level that is more considered to our offices. What we do in our offices, in our delegations, and what do we do considering our the communities that we work with, our beneficiaries, our partners, stakeholders, etc. So we give you a little bit more detail. For this, we created indicators and a calendar, and also, we had to make some proofs that this is happening. So we define some sources of data, so we can to help us measure and to prove that we are doing some work. And this is just some examples. So at the awareness level, engagement, we defined that we are going to create a self-learning training course for AIDGLOBAL team. So everyone that arrives to AIDGLOBAL in the first moment, even if it is a trainee, a volunteer of a human resource, the first step it is to do this training course. It will be very small. It will be from 4 to 6 hours. We are still preparing this training course, but it will be a moment that the human resource not only gets to know AIDGLOBAL and wants to start working in it, but also has to be aware of all this, the importance of environment and the importance of our climate action strategy. Okay, so this is one thing. And also for our work in education outside, we have to be sure that the environmental topics are incorporated in the educational plans of preschools that we in Mozambique we support communitarian preschools, and we are already integrating these environmental themes there. Okay, so this is in the awareness sector. And also considering our human resources in the Lisbon office mainly, and in Shibuto also, our employees are still working the majority of the time face-to-face in presence. In Mozambique, it won't be possible in the other way, but in Lisbon or in Portugal, we have this objective of giving the opportunity with time to be able to work remotely more time. So it will be important because it reduces travels by car, by public transportation, etc. About waste use, reuse, and recycling. Whenever it's possible, we will opt always for digital archives whenever the funders allowed. We were that kind of organization that printed everything and have many dossiers of the activities of everything in paper. We still have this tradition in us, but yeah, we are working now to have more digital archives. And also to reduce printings. We in Lisbon office we already make a big effort. So this indicator is not that ambitious because we said that we will reduce 30% in Portugal of printings, but we already do the best. So it's like, well, can we do best when we already reduce it a lot? But we have it in mind. And in Mozambique, it's only 10% because the electricity is not that common, and it's not that easy to print to reduce printings because it has to be, we have to consider the conditions of the country and of our work there. So there it has to be less ambitious due to the external conditions. And AIDGLOBAL will offer a reusable water bottle to all human resources. About the energy consumption, even in this area, we didn't, even in the measuring, when we were calculating, we couldn't do much because we are a small office inside of a huge public building. So it was very difficult to know our impact in energy consumption. And we hadn't that much time to go to this public authority and ask them to what are the impact of this huge building in energy. So we didn't calculate that. Probably if we did, we would have a huge impact in that numbers that I presented before. But we have a big preoccupation of turning off all the computers and telephones after the working days and remove the cables from the chains. And one thing that is very curious, like we work in Portugal in 2 offices, and in Mozambique, we need the computers to the team meetings. Because not everyone is in presence. And we thought that we were using too many computers in team meetings. So yeah, for us, it makes sense to read this one computer for 2 or 3 or 4 people. Whenever in Lisbon there are more people, and we can reduce and share computers, and not all of us have a computer in the meeting. About sustainable purchases, in here we are putting the practice that we already had, but it's important to write what we do good and to foster it and to enhance it. So we always, when there is coffee breaks, we always buy local, organic, or fair trade food. And we always buy second-hand refurbished computers and laptops. So in that case, it's some practice that we'll maintain, but there is an issue with cell phones. Normally, NGOs and don't have many money for this kind of equipments. There are not many funds in the projects for equipments, so we try to use what is cheaper. And but it's very important because cell phones, cellulars, have a huge environmental impact, and not only environmental but social impact due to the mining process and the minerals, the rare minerals. So it's very important that we invest in companies that have social and environmental responsibility. So now we have this conscious that we cannot buy the cheapest. We have to buy the one from, not the more expensive one, but we have to buy the one. We have to search for the companies and to understand how they rate in environmental and social issues. And there are some NGOs that have these rating indexes considering the companies. Yeah, if we receive a fund if there is a big company that wants to fund us, we also have to be aware if it won't be greenwash for them or social wash. So we really have to get to know the backstages of the companies before accepting a grant or a fund. And when another issue is when we buy paper, to have to always, and if we print some copies from pedagogical resources, ensure that it's certified paper or recycled. Yeah, more or less, this in Mozambique is we are used to buy local products made by local suppliers and use waste to produce other materials. So we keep up with that practice. And we want to be sure that all projects have environmental indicators. But this kind seems simple for those of you who write project applications for new grants. We also always have to fill the sustainability chapter. But normally we put some simple things like recycling, like reducing travels, but in this case we have to be more ambitious. We have to think if we can even integrate in the project budget money to these environmental issues. It's more easy to understand in our case in Mozambique, where we have 6 preschool, where we work in 6 communitarian preschools. And yeah, these preschools, we had a project that funded the creation of these preschools, but we hadn't money to create emergency plans, considering the environmental impacts. And it will be so important in the beginning to include money to make this emergency plan, considering the impacts. For example, in Shibutu, mainly in one of the communities, there is high risks of floods. And Mozambique is one of the countries in the world that is most impacted by the climate change. So we have to put money in the projects, also considering the prevention, the mitigation, and the adaptation. Yesterday we had a meeting when we were thinking of buying some bags of sands to protect the entrances of the schools and our office to prevent from floods. Yeah, but it's something that we are not thinking and doing, these emergency plans to considering our office to protect the materials and the team and also the schools. But it's important to think a little when we do new applications to think what kind of money do I have do I have to put in the budget to include more the environmental issues. So this is one of the things that this project inspired us and taught us to do, that is to be more ambitious in these environmental indicators. And about mobility, well, we learn what is a green travel from the Erasmus Plus travel projects, and we will try to do more green travels, prefer train, prefer buses to travel between countries, although it's not easy, but we have that goal. And also, as we work in Madeira, and there are two islands, prefer the boat than the airplane when we travel among or between islands. And considering our office in Lisbon, we will encourage the use of bicycle, providing the garage that we can use the garage, but we can also give this opportunity to the human resources to park their bicycles there. So this emergency plan in Mozambique, I already told about that, and also that we will have to engage the community and the local authorities in this emergency plan, and we are already working on that. And what is very interesting is not only to make this strategy, is also how to communicate it externally with the stakeholders. So we have this communication strategy, so it will be published on our website. And the environmental impact, you remember when I before I told that we had 6,000 kilos of CO2 avoided, our positive impact. It should be communicated. Who knows if the funders, if the companies that support us, if the stakeholders reach us, because we are communicating this in positive environmental impact. So we are publishing this strategy on the website, on our social media report, in our annual report. That was what I wanted to say, and also twice a year in the social media. And who are we? Our colleague Thais explained that it's important to find a climate strategist in each organization, the person, the focal point that is in charge, or that don't allow anyone to forget that we have this strategy and we have indicators and we have to achieve the goals. So we have this climate strategist that currently it's me, but with the support of the president of the board, the exec, and the coordinator of the delegation in Mozambique, and with the support of the communication manager in this objective of dissemination the strategy. Of course, we count with many people that helped us, even in the calculation process of calculating our emissions, our colleagues, inclusive one colleague that is here, that is also Sophia, that is helping in this, and Patricia and Susanna. So we use these project tools that you already know, that is the calculators, and we will provide an annual report of our impact. So these tools, these are our contacts, and I will try to, because these tools are also, Thais presented them, but they, if you can see, they're very, you can find them and downloaded in this website. And the calculators are here, the handbook is here, and we also use these exact materials to and the template of the climate strategy that we use was also this one. So we find these tools very useful and very practical to do this strategy. And now we have a lot of work ahead of us, because every year we have to calculate, we have to make a report, etc., and communicate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Yes, you're right. Extra work, but also extra benefit for all of us and for the planet. But thank you very much for sharing AIDGLOBAL experience. It seems to me that you have made really a great job, and also thanks for sharing also your planification for next years. Because it's true that we should make a realistic climate strategy, something affordable for our organization, and not just doing like idealistic plans that we can't afford. So it seems that you really think about a realistic plan for integrate the climate strategy inside your organization. And so thanks very much for the sharing. So we are almost in the conclusion of the webinar. I thank you all for the participation. I don't know if there are some questions, but if not, I would like to remembering you that in Emission Impossible website, all the tools, so the climate strategy toolkit, but also the guidelines to implementing all the climate strategy pathway, so the guidelines to replicate all the project. Both instruments are available in our project website in 5 languages, so in English, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and French. So they are free of charge, of course. I will also give you the link to the website. And if there are no questions, I really thank you for the participation, and I will leave some minutes to share an evaluation questionnaires of the webinar. So please give us some feedback about the tools and also about how the webinars was. Thank you very much. Maybe Sophia will share on the chat the link to the questionnaire.
Thank you, Martina. I can share the link to the tools.
Yeah, great.
And to the climate to the manual, to the climate strategy.
Anyway, we can also send by email the questionnaire if you prefer.
Okay, it could be a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Have a nice day.
Bye, thank you very much.
Yeah.